I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We are very, very excited to be launching our SimpleQI, which will be our new platform for our data for Georgia PQC. So we're very, very excited that you could join us this afternoon. Just a reminder, if you could mute your lines unless you have a question, that would be great. And we're just going to run through a couple of introduction slides, and then we will turn it over to Michael to get us started on training. So we've been talking about this for a really long time now. So we have been looking for a better way to manage our quality improvement work, and we think we've found that. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for the patience and the time to get this up and going, but we're excited to move forward. Just a little overview of SimpleQI, and these slides came straight from Michael's website. We hope that this is going to allow us to plan and measure improvement better, to streamline our measurement, to increase our visibility and our collaboration. So some of the things that SimpleQI are able to do, we're able to plan and measure improvement. We're using our driver diagrams for that. We're doing test of change. We'll be able to track some PDSA cycles. We'll be able to link those drivers and changes to our measures. When we're talking about measures, we can select those measures. We can improve baseline and capture and visualize that data in run charts, detect where signals of change are needed and where we can make small adjustments in our PDSA cycles. And then increase our visibility and collaboration. So there's options within the system for reminders on calendars. There's the ability to put in the PDSA learning and data cycles, talk among your facilities, show your small successes, so show where you're making progress, as well as having changes and be able to make adjustments. And then obviously to accelerate improvement, this is an easy platform. That's the SimpleQI name. And we're very excited for the capabilities that we've been working with Michael on and look forward to what this is going to do for us as a collaborative. Just a couple of quick reminders that we do have our data submission for Q2 for FY24. We have moved that back to August the 9th. That is in anticipation of today's training and giving all of you time to get into the system, do a little bit of planning and playing with it. And then, of course, Q3 will be due the end of October, with Q4 being January of 2025. After we have our training today, feel free if you have any follow-up questions, concerns, anything like that we can help you with. These are our contacts. Reach out to us via email, and we will do our best to get you the information you need. And so I'm very excited to introduce Michael and let him go through the SimpleQI process with us and train us on using the system. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Michael, I'm going to let you take over.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Amy. So let me just get my screen sharing going here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to today's session for learning about SimpleQI. And let's see, we hope to get the training done pretty much within 45-50 minutes, leaving a little bit of time at the end for questions. But if we do run out of time at the very end, you can always ask questions of the project staff. And if they can answer them, then they will reach out to us to get the answers for those as well. All right, so let me just start off by showing you how to register with SimpleQI. So as people are invited to the project, you'll receive an invitation email with a link in it that will point directly back to this screen here. And if it is an invitation, the email will automatically be filled out with the email that you were invited using. One thing I'll point out about that is it's important not to change that email address, because the invitation comes along with a role assignment for the project. And if you change the email address, that role assignment won't be connected up with you. So if you do get invited using the wrong email address, reach out to the person who invited you and ask that you be invited using a different email address. So we'll just come here. It's very simple: first and last name, email address, and then the password. There's some rules around the password strength here, just to make sure that they're secure and not like password 123. So we just want to make sure that things stay safe within the platform. Yeah, the last thing you have to do is basically read the terms of use and privacy policy. If you just click on these, gives you a view of that. And then the privacy policy there. And then once you read those thoroughly, which I know everyone will, you just check this off, click register. That role assignment will become active, and then you'll be directed into the project. So what we're looking at here is a user that has access to, several projects. If you have access to both the cardiac and the severe hypertension projects, you'll see both of those show up in your list. On the right-hand side, there are some help videos. Within the tool, it's a more extensive list of help videos, and you can always get to it by clicking the question mark here. And these are very short task-based videos. The video recorder icon will show up on multiple screens, and that will indicate there is a video available for that screen. But if you do want to just look at these, you can always click on the question mark here. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the cardiac project, and you can see that it put us directly. I'm a member of the training team. I created these training teams just so that we can add data and things like that without worrying about polluting the real project. We'll go ahead and delete these training teams after the training. So you can see the name of the project is at the top left. The team that we're currently in is here. You can look at other people's team pages. You will not be able to see their individual data, but you'll be able to go in, view any resources that they shared, view PDSAs that they've run, so you can learn from other people's PDSAs. And also there's a team discussion that if you wanted to ask that team a question, you could post directly into their discussion groups as well. Okay. So I'll orient you to the main screen here. So on the left-hand side is the main navigation. The people section is where you can view people on your team and invite people. The measures is where you will enter data and view your data for the measures. The forms, the only form currently will be the team profile, and I'll go over these in more detail as once I get over the overview. So the forms will be a team profile. PDSAs obviously will allow you to view all of your PDSAs. If you go to another team and click on their PDSA section, you'll see all the PDSAs that they've run. The changes list all the changes in the project driver diagram, as well as the driver diagram below that shows the driver diagram that's been set up for the project. These are your team discussions. There's also a team calendar. Improvement coaches can put monthly meetings on there, or you can put your own meetings on there. But you also can view all of the project level meetings as well, which I'll show you there. The resources lets you manage documents and links, so you can organize things in there using folders. The reports lets you view your own data. If you go to another team's page, you will not see this report section. The import export will allow you to download all of your data. If you go to another team, you won't see this at all on their site. Okay. So the upper left-hand corner here is the aim. So the project aim is defined, and it defaults to your aim defaults to the project aim. So that's why it says default. You can go ahead and customize this, and you can add additional detail to the aim statement, or you can add the details at the bottom based on what your goals are for the project. And there's some helpful guidance on the side, which talks about what is included in a helpful aim statement. What are the things you need to think about? So I'll go ahead and leave that alone. Below that is the calendar of events. You can see here, these are project events. And one clue that these are project events is the color of the icon is blue. If there was a team level event, then it would show up in green. And you'll notice that trend where the green along the top here indicates team. The blue, you can see the blue line over here indicates these are project level sections within the site. So if I go in and view the calendar, it defaults to a monthly view, and you can see that there's several events already on the calendar. If we go in and click on one of these, you'll see more detail. And you can also, some of these actually have links and things like that. Okay. If you wanted to add an appointment to your own calendar, I recommend switching to the week view, just so that you can select the time period right on the screen, like so. And then I'll say add team event. And it'll say this is our team meeting. It defaults to online meeting. You can make it an in-person meeting. You can just say this is a due date or a milestone that we're shooting for. And then you can put the Zoom link in here, the Teams link, depending on what platform you might use. Go ahead and click create. And then it shows up in green on the calendar. You can also subscribe to this calendar. So if you use Outlook or Google Calendar, you can click this button. It copies the link to the calendar right to your clipboard. And let me just show you what that looks like. And if you've ever subscribed to a calendar before using the calendaring system that you're used to, you basically go and say, I want to subscribe to a calendar. You paste this link into there in terms of where the calendar is. Now, and then that tool will consistently poll SimpleQI to get updates to the calendar. That way you don't have to keep coming back to visit to see if there's any new events. Okay, so that's just a little helpful tip. If you are the person responsible for adding these events, you can also remove it from the calendar if you wanted to. And then it's gone. Okay, so we'll go back to the team homepage. Below that is the newest team resources. So if you've added any resources, they will appear here. And if you want to view all of your resources, you can either click View Resources or click on the left-hand side on the Resources section. This section combines both team and project level resources. So if I click on the Project tab, you can see that there's a document that's already been uploaded by the project staff for the safety bundle. I'll go back to the team. Because I am configured as a team administrator, I have the ability to add documents to the team site. So I can start off by creating a folder. Say this is our, say, meeting minutes. So let's say we want to keep our monthly meeting minutes in here. I can then open this folder, and then I can just add the documents in there. So I can add them one at a time, or I can drag a whole bunch in there at the same time. So I'm just going to open up a little folder over here. So this what I'll show you now is how you can add multiple documents. So let's say you had a couple of documents or 5 documents, and you wanted to put these in the folder. You can just drag them and drop them on this zone. Those get uploaded. Now they're in the meeting minutes folder. If I want to remove a document, click the trash can, go ahead and delete it, and then it's gone. You can also add individual files by clicking the Add File button here. This just lets you pick an individual file to upload. You can also add links. So if you have a resource that's on a public website that you want to link to, we can just go ahead and do that. I'll just say Google. And then it shows up as a link. And you can see the icon is now indicating that it is a link. If I click on it, it opens up in another tab so that you don't lose your place. If you want to move things around, you can do that as well. Let's say you put this in the wrong spot. You can come over here and click the move button, and I'll just move it up to the root. And then it just lets you move it around. You can also move entire folders, so it makes it easy to reorganize things if you decide that you want to clean up a little bit. If you want to provide someone a link to this document, let's say, oh, we uploaded a new resource, would love to share with everybody. You can come over here and click the share resource. And if I go into, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either share it directly in email, or if you wanted to put it in the discussion group, you could do that as well. So I'll just do it in the team discussion area. So this is your team section. There's also the project discussions here as well. And I can go ahead and post it in here. You can see when I copied it, it actually took the name of the file and then a link to the file. If I say add, I go in and look at this post. If I click on this, it'll actually go to the exact location where that file is stored and then highlighted in the interface, so that it makes it easy to find. You can also share entire folders as well. So if you wanted to include a link in a calendar event to all the resources for a meeting, you can create a folder for all those resources, share that folder, and then paste the link into the appointment itself. And then that way everyone has access to the resources. One thing to remember, if it's something posted on the team discussion, everybody on that team will receive the initial notification of the post saying that there's a new post available. After that, if it's not your post or you haven't replied to that post, you won't be notified of additional replies to that. So we try to balance notifications and not trying to spam people too much. And that goes for the project level discussions as well. So if somebody posts something in there, everybody on the project will get notified of the initial post. Subsequent replies will only go to the author of that original post or other people who have replied to that post. You can also subscribe to conversations. If you wanted to follow a conversation but you're not involved in it, you can just say subscribe. If you wanted to follow all the conversations in an area, you could say subscribe to or follow all. So now I would receive every notification that gets posted in here, not just the replies to my conversations. And then if you want to stop following it, you can just click on stop following. Okay. And that works for the project level ones as well. Okay, let's see. So that's the discussions. There's also discussions in the changes area, which I'll show you once we get into the driver diagram and the PDSAs. But next I wanted to show you the measure configuration, the data entry in terms of entering data multiple measures at a time or entering data a single measure at a time. So if I go to the measures section, you can see all the measures for the project are listed here. And these are for the, obviously these are for the cardiac project. The hypertension project has different ones, but it's going to look exactly the same. So if you're entering data for multiple measures, so say you're doing your quarterly measure entry, you'd probably want to go into the data entry for multiple measures. What this does is it shows all of the measures by the data collection frequency. So if there were measures that were monthly, there would be another tab here that would say monthly, and it would show all the monthly measures. But this project happens to have only quarterly measures. So all you have to do is select the quarter you want to enter data for, and then you can tab from text box to text box entering the information, and it saves it automatically. So I'm not going to enter data now just because I don't want to pollute the project with fake data. And as you tab, it saves the data. And if it needs a numerator and a denominator, once you fill out both, you'll see the percentage calculated here. And you can also add annotations if there's something special about that data point that you wanted to call out. You can see all of them are here. If a measure is stratified by something, it basically will show a line for each stratification. So this one happens to be stratified by race. And you would just fill this out as if it looks, it's almost like there's 5 measures for this one measure. It's basically 5 different data points for this one measure because you're stratifying it. But these all work the same. Okay. And if you wanted to switch time periods, you would just switch a different one, select a different one here, and then you would enter the data for Q1, for instance. I did mention that there are video camera icons throughout the site. Here's one here. This is the one that would bring up how to do what I just described, which is entering the data for multiple measures. I'm going to go back to the measures section. These are all the measures currently configured. There are some additional, I don't know about the hypertension, but this one has 2 optional measures that have not been activated for this team. If these are measures that you would collect data on, all you would have to do is click activate, and it would move up to this main list, and then it would appear in your data entry screen. You can also create custom measures for your own team. So let's say, for instance, you were running a pretty extensive PDSA. You wanted to start collecting data on that. You can go ahead and add a custom measure, which is very straightforward. Basically, just click add measure. And I'm going to go through this quickly, but there is a help video here. I'll say, let's pick a percentage. Let's say next. This is our test measure. Say, select the category, outcome process balancing with some help text below it. So let's say this is an outcome. We can also enter an optional data collection strategy. We just have to say what the numerator is. So patients with something, and denominator is both patients. Next. And then this is where we select how often we want the data to be entered. So typically it's monthly. For PDSAs, it may be weekly, maybe even daily, depending on how quick you're iterating. But we'll just pick monthly for now. You can customize the y-axis by changing the label, but it's defaulting to a smart default 4% measure. You can also set up a goal. Let's say our goal is 10%. And now we're all done. Now, if we look here, you can see that we have a test measure on the right-hand side. So I'll show you how to enter data for this test measure. That way, when I go ahead and delete the team, this measure will disappear as well as all of the data for it. But the other measures will be exactly the same as this one. So this is a blank measure. You can switch between the measures just by doing the drop down here. If you wanted details about the measure, you can just hover over that little blue eye, which shows you all the details that have been configured for this. So we can either select the first time period we want to enter data for, or if we have baseline data, we can actually import it, and it's pretty simple to do. Let me just open this, go to the, find my import spreadsheet. So this is just a sample spreadsheet that I have that has different frequencies of data that I can, and then different types of measures. So this one is a monthly percent. So it has a numerator and denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this region of data. And I just say copy. If I move this down here, I can come over here and just paste it in. It does the validation and make sure that you only have monthly data points. it makes sure that you have a numerator and a denominator and that they're all numbers. And if it passes that validation, you can give it a quick once over and say, yes, this is the correct data. Say it looks good. And then it imports it directly into that. So that way you don't have to manually enter baseline data if you wanted to enter any baseline data. Just makes it a little bit easier. You can see that we have a line here, which is actually representing the median of the data points. So if I expand this analysis panel down, it automatically creates a median using all the data, and it happens to be around 12. If you're familiar with run chart rules, what this is doing in the background is actually running run chart rules to detect signals of change automatically in your data. You don't have to do anything to get it to do that. If you do have a lot of baseline data, we do recommend that you set up, you adjust the median to say this is our baseline. And if we drag this back, 2, 3, 4, 10, we'll bring it back to October. So this will give us 10 points in the baseline median. And you can see now that I've established this median, it's slightly different than the one that used all the data, and it's frozen and extended into the future. It picked up a shift, which clearly means that there's probably some change in the process, and that you may want to establish a different median for this sort of after the baseline. So, and the way you do that is click Add Range, and we'll just call this Post. And now we have a median down here. And you can see the shift disappeared because now we're using this median to detect run chart rules from here into the future. If you wanted to add another data point on the end here, you just click this button and it tells you what time period it's going to be adding it for. If you want to add a whole bunch of data points, you click it several times, and then you can just enter the data like this. Right, like that. Okay. You can also edit data points. Say you made a mistake, you can just go back and edit it. If you want to add an annotation, you can add that annotation here. You can also export an image of the chart going up to the actions. Just say export chart. This shows the run chart rules. It shows the medians. It shows annotations, which you can move around. And it also shows the goal. If you want to clean it up a little bit, you can shut things off. Let's say we don't want the goal line here. And let's keep the annotations. Click export, creates a PNG file, and then it just appears in here, and you can put this in a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation or an email, whatever you want to use it for. Okay. You can also export all the data for a measure. You'd probably want to export all the data for all the measures on your team, which I'll show you how to do in the import-export section here. And like I mentioned, you can switch the different measures. There won't be any other data in these other measures, but it lets you jump around without going back to the main measures list here. The other way to get to the measures is from your homepage, your team homepage. So you can pick the drop-down list here to go to a specific measure, or you can go to the button here that says enter data for multiple measures at once, which sends us back into that screen right here. Okay. So that's pretty much adding measures, entering data, and looking at the run charts. Okay. So thinking about running PDSAs and using the driver diagram to do that and organize your testing of change, you can go to the drivers section. So this driver diagram is defined at the project level. So everybody has the same structure in the driver diagram. And you can see there is some color coding. So each primary driver can have a different color. Just makes it a little bit easier to visually separate out the different drivers. and then everything below that primary driver has the same color. So the secondary driver does, and then the change concepts as well. So this is a pretty extensive driver diagram. One thing you can do to customize the driver diagram is you can add your own change concepts. And if you have some change idea that you want to test out, but it doesn't really fit within an existing change concept, you can just say add idea and test. But most of the time, you're probably going to be testing an existing change. What you would do is just click on Start a Test. And it brings you into the PDSA section for this change concept for your team. And all you have to do to start your first PDSA cycle is say plan your first PDSA cycle. This is where you enter the change idea that belongs under the change concept. So you can actually test multiple change ideas in parallel that would fall under the same change concept. So let's say change idea to test. Once you do that, it sends you directly into the PDSA form. This is just the empty form. It looks like any PDSA form that you've probably filled out in the past. There is no save button on here, so all you have to do is go through and fill out as much or as little of this form as you want or need to for the PDSA. The only required field would be the testing period. One of the things we found early on is people were not thinking about how long they would be testing a change idea. For a particular PDSA cycle. So we really wanted to encourage people to fill this out. So the bottom part of the form is disabled until you decide we're going to test this for a week, for instance. If I fill out these objectives, let's say objective 1, objective 2, 3, no need to save. Plan details, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then we have some questions that we're going to answer. And data collection lead plan. Spell it correctly. Collecting data in this way. So that's the planning phase. We come back in when we're ready to start testing. We're going to start recording some observation summaries during the test or after the test. We observe that something. And then once that's been documented and let's say we're at July 27th, and we wanted to look at what we learned, we're now in the study phase. You'll notice as the dates pass, the green section, meaning the current section for the PDSA cycle, will move. So once you're in the do phase, this section will be green. Once you're in the study phase, this section will be green. And some helpful links here. If you wanted to copy what you entered above without having to cut and paste, you could just click this. And it just gives you a nice starting place for documenting the predictions. Same thing with the observation summary. It gives you a starting place for what you've already documented above, and you can just edit that. Once you're done studying and you're deciding what you're going to do next, you have 3 choices. You can adapt this change. So I want to continue testing and revise the change idea. Let's say it's not working out. Let's just abandon the idea and stop testing it. Or let's say we've run 5 PDSA cycles and we feel confident that this is something we want to implement in our daily work. We can go ahead and adopt it. So I'm going to say revise because it is our only our first PDSA cycle on this change idea. Let's say we plan on adjusting this idea slightly and then continue to test. So we'll say adapt. It gives you a chance to continue editing the next steps. It also does give you a little bit of guidance here in terms of what does it mean to adapt a change and when is this the correct choice. For people who have experience doing PDSAs, not as helpful, but people just starting out, this tries to be a little bit helpful. Click adapt. So now we're back into the list of PDSAs for this change concept. And this is the change idea we just added. It does say that we're waiting to start our next planning cycle. If we do change our mind and we don't want to test it anymore, we can click done. If we're ready to start our next planning cycle, we'll say start planning cycle. And then it'll put us back into that form. And you can see you can expand this to view some details about these PDSA cycles. You can also view all of the details. And people can also post questions to you right on the PDSA cycle. So if they're reading your PDSA cycle and they have a comment or a question about it, they can just say add comment. So this is another place where discussions can happen. And you'll get notified when people do this. So you don't have to come poking around it to find out. One other thing I'll point out here is as you add new change ideas, there's a folder that automatically gets created for you to add resources to it. So let's say you have a document like a patient satisfaction survey or an image of a waiting room after you've changed the layout. You can put those all in here related to this set of PDSA cycles. And below this are folders of recommended resources. These don't have any in them, but the project staff, if they do have documents, they can add them at different levels. So they can add a document at the primary driver level, and it'll show up throughout the entire primary driver level branch. Same thing with the secondary driver level, or something a little bit more specific, which is at the change concept. And those will all be available to you right when you're running your PDSA cycles. Okay, so that's how you would start your first PDSA cycle. Now, let's say that you were interested in finding other people who are working on a change idea. I'm going to just quickly switch over to a different project because I want to show you one that's more populated. And if we go to the team home, there's a section here called most active standard changes. So the project that we were just in doesn't have that populated yet because the PDSAs haven't been run on the standard changes just yet. Plus, the only one that we did run was my team, so there's no chance of collaboration with myself. But what this does is as people run PDSAs within the driver diagram is that the 5 most active change concepts will show up here. And it shows you how many teams are also working on this. So if you are working on mapping out the scheduling process, for instance, or if you're not and you just want to learn about it, you can just click on this and you can see all the other teams working on this change concept with their PDSA cycles on a timeline. So you can see how many iterations they've had, how long they've been working on it, and things like that. And instead of having to look into all their PDSAs to start out with, you can just click on the Learnings tab, and this extracts out the Learnings section from each PDSA, and you can view it, and then you can also view the full PDSA here. So this makes it easy for you to kind of peruse and look for some nuggets of improvement in here that you might want to learn from. The resources, so this is a driver diagram with resources in it. So you see that there's a primary driver document, there's a secondary driver document, and then there's a change concept document. The only reason I can see these drag your files here is because I'm a project administrator right now, and I can add documents, but you wouldn't see that. You would just see the documents listed here. The measurement section is not something you would see at this level because this would, in essence, allow you to see other teams' data. The projects are set up not to let you see other teams' data, but there is the ability for other projects or in the future, if everybody agreed to show each other's data, they could show up here as well. But this lets you see other teams' data, which you can understand why this section will be hidden for your project. And then there's a discussion in here as well. So this is really a place that would allow once teams really start working on the driver diagram and start doing PDSAs, there's going to be more and more people in one of these change concepts to be able to ask a very focused question about that change concept to those teams. All you have to do is come into the change collaboration space and then make a post in this discussion group. So you can see there's several here. Obviously, these are all fake, but you can see how people can find each other and have conversations about a change concept. Okay. If you want to go in and look at a team's PDSA cycles, let's say we want to go look at Andover's PDSA cycles because they've run so many. We just click on their name. You can see that we have 2 change ideas. This one's my test sequence February 23rd, and then trying a new method of scheduling is the other change idea. And you can expand and collapse these like we did on the other one. And you can also see, I don't think there's any documents in here. No, there's no documents. And once there are other people working on a change idea, you'll see this button appear in your PDSA area. And this just brings you back to the change collaboration space. So there's another way you can get to the change collaboration space. You don't have to go from the team homepage and the most active list, or from another team's PDSA list. You can actually go into the driver diagram and you can see there's numbers on this driver diagram. The other one, because there weren't any run yet, didn't have the numbers appearing, but it's showing how many teams are working in these different areas. And then if you're looking at a particular team, you can see that how many PDSA cycles they've run on a change idea. So let's say this is your driver diagram and you want to go find other people that are working on this one. You can just click on this button and it brings you right into the change collaboration space. Okay, so that's it for that project. I'll switch back to the real project. So you can see, because we ran a PDSA cycle here, the one team is the training team for all of these. And then this is our single iteration that we ran. You can also filter a driver diagram down to just the active drivers. So if we wanted to see what this team's working on overall, it filters it down just the ones that have some activity for this team. So that is a driver diagram, change collaboration space, PDSAs. The last thing I want to show you is the reporting section. Again, you'll only see this for your team, but it's broken out into a measures section. Team activity lets you see everything that you've done within your team. So you can see that we did a PDSA, we entered some measure data, we created a measure, we added some resources. You can show just that certain activity here. So let's say you only want to see what PDSAs some team has run. You can get to it from here. If I click on this, it'll actually send me into that PDSA. You can see which time period. So I want to go back and look at a month, say in July, so forth. Let's see. So that's the activity report. You're not going to be using status reports right away. In the future, there is the ability to turn on status reports, which will allow you to do a self-assessment on say a monthly basis, give yourself an assessment score, and then improvement coaches can then assess your assessment and give you some advice. But that is a future thing. But I did want to point that out. The team measures, it shows that one measure that we imported data for with the run chart rules and the medians and the annotations on here as well. If you had multiple measures, obviously it would show everything. And then in the aggregate measure, this lets you look at a particular project measure across the entire project and compare yourself to the aggregate. There isn't any data in here, so I can't really show you that, but let me see if I can show you on the other one. Team home reports aggregate. Let's pick this one. So you can see this is the overall aggregate for the project. You can change what calculation is used for the aggregate. Typically, it's either average or median is more useful than the aggregate, because the aggregate takes all the numerators and all the denominators and calculates a percent. It can be diluted based on team size differences and things like that. So it's much better to pre-calculate the percentage and then calculate the average, because you can see that there's a significant shift in the shape, the shape of the data. So if I wanted to just show my team on here, I just have to click this button. And my team is the light blue, and the other one is the aggregate with my team pulled out of it. So you can quickly compare. Let's see if there's anything else. Small multiples won't appear because that does let you see every other team's data in separate charts, but I think that's it for this one. Excuse me. If you wanted to export all your data, you can come to the import export section and you can click on this. And what this lets you do is this opened up. It's basically a CSV file. My file association for CSV is a text editor. That's why it showed up in here, but otherwise it would normally just show up in Excel. So an Excel spreadsheet with all your data for all your measures. So if you wanted to take that and do other analysis, so let's say you like Excel for creating charts, you can download all the data, do your charts in Excel, and then use those for presentation. Okay. The last thing I need to show you is the team profile. So this is a form that gets filled out by each team, and this is going to be used for being able to stratify the data by different demographics. So what you do is come into here, which is, it just says complete form, or you can go into the left-hand section of forms, but I'll just click on this. It's a pretty simple form. If you don't know the answer to one of the questions, you can just select unknown. Obviously, you'll probably know what region you're in, but some of these other ones, if there's any question, you can leave it unknown, and then the project staff will help complete the unknowns. Once you fill it out, click save, and then that becomes part of your team demographics profile. That is all the topics I wanted to cover today. So if there's any questions now, I can answer them. If you think of them later, you can send them through the project staff, and either they'll answer them or they'll get them to the appropriate place in SimpleQI to get those answered.
Thank you, Michael. So we do have one question that was posted into the chat. It says, we will open will we be assigned the GAP QC teams or have to find them? Yes, you will receive an email. Whoever your data lead is for your facility or your organization, you will get an email that will give you the link to get you to SimpleQI. So that's something that we wanted to provide the training first, and then send that out to you after the training. So in the next few days, you should be receiving an email to your data lead, and then we'll follow up from there.
Yep, actually, that brings up a good point. I forgot to cover one of the most important things in here, and that's how to add people to your team. So if you are the project administrator, I mean, the team administrator that gets assigned, what you will do is go into your people section and you will assign a role to whoever you want to add to your team. So there are several different roles you can assign. So you can assign other team administrators. That basically lets them do everything, including invite more people. If you want to just have them add data, run PDSAs, upload documents, you can just assign a team contributor. And if you want to invite somebody in just to give them view-only rights to your information, including your data, you would invite them either as a guest or a viewer. Those are essentially the same. If you don't know which role to assign, you just click on this link and scroll down to the team member roles. And this shows you what each team member can and cannot do within your team site. Okay. So what will happen when you invite somebody, when it say abc@test.com. So I know this user is not registered, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want to show you what it's going to look like. Click add. So if they were already registered with SimpleQI, let's say they've worked on a project in the past and they're registered, they would automatically get the role immediately. 99% of the people you invite will not be registered. So it'll say, do you want to invite them? But yes, invite. It shows you that they're in the invited list over here. That person just received an email with a link in it. As I'd mentioned to start off with, that link would go directly to the registration screen. So you'll be receiving that email in the next few days with the invitation. If the person didn't receive the email for some reason, maybe they deleted it by accident, you can just click this. It'll resend that invitation email. If you inadvertently invited somebody using maybe their wrong email address, or they just never respond, you can just delete that invitation. And then it goes away. So that's the only thing I wanted to cover on that. So
Thanks, Michael. Any other questions? We'll open it up and see. Feel free, if you do not want to come off mute, then you're welcome to type it into the chat and we can read that for you. But if you have any questions, feel free to take yourself off mute and Michael can answer that or guide us through that.
And I think that, so this is being recorded and I think you're going to provide it in both of the project sites. Is that correct? Probably in either in the resources or a link to it in the resources.
Yes, that's correct. So we are recording this today. It will be placed on our Georgia PQC website, as well as we'll place it into the resources in the folders here also.
Okay, great. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some help videos in here.
So Michael, everybody's experts.
Hopefully everyone doesn't have any questions later on, but if you do, just let us know. We'll be glad to help you. If you do, once you do register and you set up your password and you inevitably forget your password, like everybody does, all you have to do is come into the login screen, click forgot password, and then enter your email address and then click submit. And then you'll receive an email with a link in it. It'll send you into a screen that lets you enter the new password twice, the new one and then confirming the new one. And then you can get back in.
Michael, we do have a hand raised. Ashley, if you'd like to come off mute.
Yeah, so I have a question. I'm a very hands-on learner, so I think I'm going to probably have more questions once I can get my hands on it. How will we be able to ask questions, or can we send an email, or will there be a way to ask questions once we get into it? Or will there be like a tip sheet or anything like that? I guess once I touch it, I think I'll have more questions.
Well, I think if it's a general question, I would reach out to anyone on the project staff. If they can't answer it, we'll be glad to either jump on a Zoom and show you something if it's complicated, or we could just respond in an email and give you the instructions of what you need to do. So our support is available 24/7, and we respond. We respond within 24 hours, but we typically respond within an hour, and sometimes even sooner than that. So you shouldn't have any problem getting the answer that you need on how to do something.
And
Okay,
I
thank
put,
you so
it
much.
should be on the screen, Ashley. Feel free to reach out to any of us as the Georgia PQC contacts here. And if we can't answer the question you have, then of course we will reach out to Michael on your behalf.
Amy, did you see
Awesome,
the
thank you so
chat
much.
question? Where do you paste the subscribe thing to add that calendar to Outlook?
Yep.
So let me stop sharing, Michael, if you'd like to go through that again.
Yes, let me just bring that up. Sorry, get my share going again. All right, so what you do is you go into the calendar and then you click subscribe. And depending on what tool you use, are you using Outlook or Google Calendar?
It looks like they're specifically referencing Outlook.
Outlook. You would have to go into the Outlook help. I'm not sure the best way to find out how to do it, but it's basically subscribing to a calendar is what you're gonna be looking for. If you need some assistance in finding out exactly how to do it with Outlook, if you let me know what version of Outlook you're using, whether it's Office 365, we can definitely find an article that shows you how to subscribe to a calendar. But once you get to the screen that allows you to subscribe to the calendar, it's basically pasting in that URL that it put into the clipboard. And then I think you get to name the calendar. I can't remember exactly. And then it just shows up as another calendar within Outlook. Okay, so let me know if you need help finding that help within the Office 3. If it is, I'm assuming it's Office 365 because most people are using that version of Outlook now. We can definitely point you in the right direction.
Any other questions?
Hey, I have a question. I couldn't find the chat to put this in, but, and I may have missed it, but team, is that like hospital? So like my team is my hospital or my hospital system?
We have Addie on here.
Your hospital.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions before we jump off? Again, I'm going to share one more time. It'll have our contacts on there. So if once you are assigned and you're able to get into it and play with it, we've had the opportunity to do that. It seems to be fairly easy to maneuver around the system. But if you have any questions, any issues, anything that comes up, feel free to reach out to one of us. And again, give us a few days to get these emails out. And then again, to get it posted onto our website for today's recording. So again, thank you so much for everything that you guys do, all the hard work that you do on a daily basis. We look forward to this system. We think it's going to be very beneficial for the work that you're doing. And just thank you for what you do. And I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael, so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.